Now, I'm sure there's a lot of people who've heard about the Notre Dame Church being burned down in France. Of course, it's a huge tragedy because it's been around for the longest time. It's one of the oldest churches in the world. But I want to take the time to make people understand what churches are really about because you've been totally misinformed. And that's one of the reasons why there's not only ignorance in America, but there's ignorance around the entire world. Because churches are for community organizing, to make things better for your community. That's why you go to church, not to learn about the Bible. Okay? Because it's like it's basically like going to a book club and you're discussing this same book over and over again in different ways. Why would you do that? I'm sure there's important things that you need to know about your community, right, to make things better. So if people went to the church, let's say once a week, twice a week, or whatever, they'll be a lot more politically savvy throughout the years, decades. They'll be a lot more politically savvy than they are now. Clearly. Why are you going to the church to talk about a Bible? The same book over and over again. Makes no sense. And the thing is that why is this being done? Because look at the United States Capitol, right? The United States Capitol is actually a church. So what do there? They go create laws in order to make things better, quote unquote, for the public, for the country. And then you have the state capitol, which is a church. They go there to create laws in order to make things better for people in the state. And then you have your local communities. Well, what do? You go in there to actually make things better for your community. That's exactly what it's for. But why are we misinformed about this? And we're misinformed about this because of white supremacy. How is it that white people have all this history and they fundamentally misinform you about what churches are about? You understand? It just doesn't make any sense. It's because they weren't about that. Because if you really understand white people, they were about Protestant Reformation. That was their New World Order, the Protestant Reformation. Reformation, Renaissance, Rebirth. It was a New World Order. Okay? They were about faith alone. Faith alone is a version of freedom. Okay? We were saying, because black people were a huge part of the Catholic Church. That's why the black Madonna and Child is black. That's the original. The white Madonna and Child, that's when they took over. Okay? So we were saying faith and good works. So good works is a form of socialism. There you understand why they cut that out, because we know that white people had a huge problem with socialism. Now they're starting to realize, socialism is pretty good. Yeah, that's what we've been trying to tell you for centuries, for crying out loud. Because we had no problems with white people until they started acting crazy. Okay? They don't even tell you in history why they have an attitude towards Africans or black people in general. Why, where did this come from? Where did this animosity come from? They don't even tell you that. But yeah, black people were a huge part of European society, and churches are for community organizing. So when black people were actually organizing to make things better for themselves, because we were constantly being attacked and marginalized, they would attack our communities, attack our churches, bomb them, burn them, and then say, hey, no, you only talk about the Bible. We don't care if you talk about the Bible, but don't use the churches to organize. And they constantly did this to the point where, we said, we're just going to talk about the Bible. And then that just screwed up everybody else. Everybody thought that, that's where you go to church, to just pray and talk about the Bible and discuss various ways on like who did this, who did that, when did this happen. And so, no, you're supposed to talk about the community and how to make things better. That's doing God's work. But yet, white people have all this history, all this culture, but yet somehow they fundamentally misinform you about what history is about. It's because a lot of the history that they give us is fraud. It's a fraud. It's a fraud. They got their New World Order and they say whatever they want to say. Oh, black people or Africans, they were just about slavery. They didn't do anything in history. Notice that they're just talking about our history, and we can't get a word in edgeways about our own history, because Africans will totally tell you something different about Egypt. They'll tell you something totally different about Egypt, but who's controlling the narrative? It's basically white people. I was watching a documentary on voodoo. And most of the people, there were black people there, but most of the people that they're constantly referring to were white people. Hilarious. Hilarious. It's so annoying. But yes, churches are for community organizing, because that would make people a lot more politically savvy. They know how to interact properly with the courts. They'll politically organize. They'll see through politicians, and they know how to get rid of them and get the people that they want in power. And they would be able to confront the police on certain matters that they have a problem with, and they know exactly what actions to take. That's because of engaging with the community and understanding how it works. Okay, that's what churches are for, not for the Bible. That's ridiculous. But yet, as I said, you know, white historians, they completely distorted history, and they misinform you about what churches are about, what our church is really about. And it's friggin' annoying. There's a lot of things that they're lying about in history. It just gets on my nerves.